You know, people always tell you to find your niche, pick that one thing, that one field of study, that one career, that one skill, and grind it and become a master at it. But what if you can't? What if what you're interested in is actually everything? I'm sure you've all heard of the quote, "Jack of all trades, master of none." Now you could generally take it as a compliment, but if you read between the lines, it's more of an insult. You're pretty much being called a flake that cannot commit to anything. But there's a second half to that quote. That changes everything. You actually become a master of one. You take all of these different skills that you've obtained, whether they all fall in line with each other or not, eventually putting in the time is going to turn you into a master of one. This is what I would call the generalist trap. So being a generalist, being the jack of all trades, it's really a flex if you play your cards right. So you can learn about 80% of a skill in about 20% of the time that it takes to master it. Now don't get me wrong, there's nothing wrong with picking one skill and dedicating yourself to that. I would actually encourage you to do that more than to try and be a generalist. I'll say if you have any issues with concentration at all, not saying it's impossible, but it's going to be a lot harder for you to try and dip and dab in all these different careers, skills, and fields of study. I even catch myself trying to do that sometimes. There's so many different things that I want to do, and I'd imagine that there's a lot of you out there that feel the same way more or less, right? We have an entire world of information at the palm of our hands. That's our cell phones. And I find our cell phones to be a really huge part of the reason why we have a lot of access, almost too much access actually. And it really does get scary. We live in such a fast-paced, everlasting, changing world where things come and go very, very quickly. So I'm not here to tell you that being a generalist or jack of all trades is a bad thing, rather than being a person that dedicates themselves to one skill. But both sides have their pros and cons. I mean, we have different factors that we need to keep in mind. We have inflation that we need to keep in mind. I mean, a huge one that's been on the rise and it's still advancing very fast, AI. In a world such as ours, you're more, in a way, I mean, it gives you a little bit more security and confidence knowing that you have the ability to pivot as a jack of all trades if need be, versus the individual who picks one skill and masters it. I mean, they're stuck in a way. But the biggest weakness of the generalist is being that you will feel like a forever beginner. Feels like a trap in a way. So for example, if you need a heart surgery today, right now, right this instance, you wouldn't want the jack of all trades doing heart surgery on you, would you? You would want the professional to do it. I mean, that's your life in the individual's hands. You would want the person who's dedicated themselves to that one skill, individual who's dedicated their studies to it, versus like the music artist, athletic coach, videographer, heart surgeon. You wouldn't want somebody to do that. You wouldn't want that individual rather than the actual just sole heart surgeon with maybe one or two, side hustles. This world rewards people who do one thing better than everyone else versus one person who does a multitude and variety of different things at a beginner's level. That's where the trap comes in. And I mean, the paradox of the choice is that you can do anything, so you ultimately end up doing nothing. You get paralyzed by all the different options, jumping from one hobby to the next the moment things get difficult. And this actually kind of ties itself into imposter syndrome in a way. I mean, with imposter syndrome, it's really hard for you to walk into a room and feel confident when you're full of a room of people who know a lot more than you. But I'm going to save that for another video. So to escape this trap, you have to become T-shaped. And so what I mean by becoming T-shaped, right? If you look at how the letter T is structured, you have your horizontal bar up top. That's going to be your general knowledge versus the foundation of the letter T. This is going to be your deep dive right here. So your general knowledge, this is where you want to apply to be a jack of all trades or your generalist. This is where you reach into your pocket and pull out the general knowledge that you do have. This is where I like to refer to. I love to default to pulling from my general knowledge. I mean, it's arguably, the most important on a day-to-day basis, versus down here. This is your foundation. This is where you want to pull from. The foundation of the T is where you had that one skill that you were dangerously good at, and that's how you want to do it. Look, being a jack of all trades is not a failure. You're not a failure. It's a foundation. And the trap that I mentioned only snaps up when you stop moving, when you stop dedicating yourself, when you stop learning. That's why knowledge is power. Education is important. So keep dabbling, keep breaking things down, keep jumping into different fields, different niches. You may surprise yourself. You never know what you're going to be really good at until you actually try it out. But every once in a while, you have to see a project through to the end. It can be very difficult for someone who loves being a generalist and loves to do so many different things all at one time. But I'm just saying, every once in a while, just see a project through to the end. Look, I even find myself guilty doing things like that, but we're human. It's normal. Things happen. But try your best to have that discipline and see a project through to the end. See y'all. Make sure y'all are staying hydrated too.